Hello YouTube, it's DasGregor for another Linux First Impressions. Today we'll be looking at Linux Mint 15. So without further ado, here we go. Linux Mint 15 KDE edition is based on Ubuntu. Now, a lot of you know what my opinion is of Ubuntu and what they have done recently. I'll try to clarify a few things. I like the idea that certain companies like Ubuntu, Firefox, so forth, are looking at expanding into more mobile OS platforms. However, I don't like the sales model of throwing in so much commercial garbage and completely going against what the community wants or needs in the Linux distribution. And I feel that Mark Shuttleworth and the whole Ubuntu community has gone in the wrong direction. I don't like to open up my software center and be bombarded with a bunch of commercial software and garbage and advertisements for stuff that's going to cost me money. I'm not a cheapskate. I give donations to many developers and to different Linux distributions. I support them by buying shirts, coffee mugs, hats, things like that. I give books to developers. You know, if a developer has come to me with a program that I've been looking for, in the past, and I've said this in my videos, I've gone back to see if they have a donate button on their page. I've gone back to see if they have a place that I could go on their Amazon wish list, find something that they might like, and instead of just giving them money, give them a book or two or something off of their wish list that they might need. I do believe in supporting the common developer or the guy who's doing this because he has a passion for it. And you've got to be able to support people like that, because I don't have all that ability. I don't have that know-how to do things. And so I appreciate that people are out there developing in a FOSS environment, free and open source community. And I don't like it when Ubuntu and other flavors start throwing in a bunch of stuff at, oh, for $7.99 you get this program. Yeah, for that same program you can go find 4 or 5 halfway decent, if not better, distributions or applications that do the same thing as that very expensive piece of well, $7.95 might not be expensive to some, but I just had this adversity to paying for software when I know that there might be an open source solution that's going to be better or just more available to use. That's all I'll really say about that. You know, I found out about Linux Mint shortly after Ubuntu decided to completely destroy their OS and go to a Gnome 3 shell and eliminate classic Gnome, as some call it, Gnome 2.x as others call it. And I said no. When I saw Gnome 3, I'd never seen a worse piece of garbage in my life. When they destroyed the interface with Gnome 3, I could not do that any longer. So I was saying, what are my options? You know, I use Gentoo as my main distribution. I always tell people that Gentoo is my go-to. I love Gentoo so much. I've been working in Gentoo environment for so many years. I know it inside and out. I don't mind the compile times. I don't mind that it takes me a little bit longer to get stuff done. It's just so much more stable for me. And yeah, you might look at some of my old Linux reviews from a couple years ago. Oh, I blew up my Gentoo box. Oh my goodness, I'm working on this thing night and day trying to figure out what went wrong. And you got to compile a lot and test and stuff. But you'll notice only once have you seen where I talked about, oh, you blew it up so bad that you had to start all over from scratch. And I can count on one hand, I can count on 2 hands how many times a Ubuntu update globally destroyed my Ubuntu partition And there was no way of trying to research the problem and try to fix it. I was pretty much wiping the Ubuntu partition out and starting over. I can only say that once with Gentoo, and yet it wasn't even Gentoo's fault. The issue, as 4 or 5 weeks ago when I discussed it, was the fact that I didn't realize that I'd let my power cord become loose in my laptop when I set it off to the side, when I was doing a partition move through gparted, and while it was in the midst of moving partition B to partition A, a power failure occurred and I lost everything. And it was not because of an update of binary packages or otherwise being compiled to blow it up to the point where I couldn't fix it. Never have I ever had an issue with Gentoo that I couldn't resolve with just a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of research and a little bit of hard work. Whereas Ubuntu, I don't know how many times, crashed after an update and wouldn't boot at all. And really, where do you go from there when you can't even boot into a command line interface to try and look at it? You just don't have a good starting point. I'll admit, though, when KDE 4 first came out, that's what pushed me to Gnome, because I thought 4.0 was rubbish. I thought it had all kinds of issues that I just didn't care for. And that's why I said, well, I'm always telling people, beginners and so forth, that maybe I ought to look at Ubuntu because it was so easy, user-friendly. Maybe I should take some of my advice and throw that onto one of my extra partitions and try it out. And I did like it. I used it for a while, but like I said, I was tired of every couple of weeks having to rebuild it from scratch. And that's why I never keep data on my machine. That's why I never have any type of important information left. One moment, I had to sneeze. Thank goodness for the pause buttons. Hopefully I didn't get anything on that camera. Anyway, that sneeze completely rattled my brain, and now my mind's gone blank. Of course, there wasn't much up there. Maybe we need to get back to Linux Mint. After the last time with Ubuntu, though, with them doing the whole Gnome 3, I said, I gotta find something else. Can't stand Gnome 3. It's worst garbage I've ever seen in my life. And this is like the second or third iteration of this video, and I kind of went on a tyrant in one of the other ones, and I said, nah, I don't want to be too negative towards that. I really did some bashing, which I normally don't do. I'll just leave it at this. While Linux, I know, has many people who like different things, I don't understand at all what the GNOME developers are thinking. Every GNOME distribution since 3.0 seems to be worse, absolute rubbish, than the last one. When I looked at Par 6, I believe, a couple weeks ago, and GNOME 3 was on there, and I didn't realize it, but I told him I'd do the review. I ran into so many different problems. So when I was doing Antics, which comes with OpenBox, but on a stable version of Wheezy and Debian, I decided let's try their GNOME 3 and see how it runs. See if it was a Par 6 issue, a GNOME issue, what it might be. And I found that, hey, this is a lot better, and I kind of like it, and they have some nice stuff, and I was able to get it working, and this is cool. And then I was talking with Caddy a little later about it, and he says, oh, well, those things that you mentioned that you liked and that they had and they worked, they got rid of them by version 3.8. And I think that version was running 3.4. So I don't understand it. I don't know what their mind process is, but it's like they just keep tearing apart the GUI and making it worse and worse with every new release. At least with KDE, when 4.0 came out, it was so buggy, had so many problems. I couldn't believe Gentoo made it stable. I got so fed up with it. It was horrible rubbish. I mean, I'm not sugarcoating it. But now that it's at 4.10.5, it's sweet. It's got stability. They fixed all their problems. Things run better. It's a wonderful GUI, if you don't mind the physical overhead with the RAM amount that it takes, the space that it runs. It's a large, lest I say bloated, GUI, because there is a lot to it, and yet you can still get the full functionality with a lot less bloat with an XFCE, with even OpenBox, Flux. Some of those GUI interfaces are just as powerful and do just as good a job. And I'm finding out that there are other things out there than KDE, but at least they've improved their distro instead of just with each version destroying it further. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I don't want to go on about how horrible Gnome has become and what Ubuntu has done to absolutely destroy Linux for most users. It was because of that, though, that I looked for Linux Mint, and I did use Linux Mint as my stable secondary partition for many years. In fact, it was only recently that I blew it away when I was working on rebuilding Gentoo, and I decided, well, let's just blow it away so I have a couple partitions so I can build Gentoo in 2 different spots, test something here before I implement it into a production environment, and go from there. In fact, I find Linux Mint to be so stable, I felt comfortable giving it to my wife to put on her laptop so that she can use it, and she's been very happy with it. It works for her. She has no issues. She even likes the blue theme and was happy that they had moved to a blue theme, because the last version I think I put on her was Linux Mint, I believe, Mate Edition, and it had a green theme. Now, I'm a green colored person. She's a blue person, so she loves the new blue. She's also the type of person who probably looks at football and looks at the uniform and says, I like that blue football team better because they got blue instead of red or green or whatever. I don't know. She really doesn't like football. It's just me who enjoys that. But Linux Mint is very stable. I would say that it's one of the best OSs to tell a new person to look at if they're looking at Linux for the first time, because it installs easy. The media for this particular one, for Linux Mint KDE, was easily able to be put on a USB stick. I was able to install it with no problems. The GUI interface was easy to run through. The partitioning was comfortable. After I was all done, I just had to run up and edit my grub configuration on my Gentoo side so I could boot into it, and it's up and running. The Novu drivers installed with no problem whatsoever. 3D support works, 2D support works. All the bling is good. All the applications that it came with, base applications that work fine. No one should have too many problems with finding something. As long as you know to go to Synaptics to look for your package manager, and I think that's why I like a lot of distributions to come more with stuff that you can install, because as a new user, you don't know what applications you want. You don't know what they're called. I mean, for the life of anybody, would they know what GIMP is? I mean, other than somebody with a bad leg? It tells me nothing. I mean, I know GIMP stands for the GNU Image Manipulation Program, but a new user has no clue about that. Most users wouldn't have a clue what Chromium, Simple Screen Recorder kind of says it for itself, but say Amarok, or even Clementine. A lot of programs within Linux have names that make no sense whatsoever. I know VLC is short for, I think, Video LAN something or other, and I'm sorry, I can't remember. But either way, my point is most Linux beginners aren't going to have an idea whatsoever of what the programs are that they want. And it's good to kind of give them a well-rounded little bit of everything to try it out and to find that out for themselves. I mean, us guys who have been using Linux for so long, we get a distribution like this and we just know, boom, 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 there's our software that we like. We got this mental thing of all our favorite applications, and unless one of you guys writes about something cool and new, like the other day, one of you guys was talking about Scite, S-C-I-T-E, and it's a simpler editor than gedit, and it's great. I like it, and I would have never even known about it. And that's why I like to watch you guys' videos as well, to learn new things. And when something new like that comes up, then I'm going to try it out. And if you guys endorse it, then it's got to be good, right? Community endorsed. Linux Mint I endorse for beginners. Easy to use, not that difficult to configure. My only gripe is that its main page, like the KDE, is based off of Ubuntu, and that you have to specifically go to the LMDE to get to the Debian-based version. Of all the reviews that I have done, this is, I think, my 21st video. 21st, I think right around 21. And I have done so many Gentoo based reviews, which is my favorite all the time. I've done a lot of Slackware based, very few Ubuntu based. This is probably one of 2, maybe 3 Ubuntu based that I've done. I've done a slew of Debian based, and I'll be honest with you, I have been very, very impressed with Debian based distributions on the Wheezy stable branch right now. Antics Forever, for instance, I'm sorry. Small, lightweight, powerful, very good. I've just been really happy with the Debian flavors. For each distro, though, there are, I don't want to say hundreds, dozens, because there are hundreds of distributions out there to try. That's why I don't think it'll be hard to do 52 distributions in 52 weeks. But eventually I'm going to run into, this is just another same version of this, just different names, same thing. And that's what I kind of started feeling like with some of these KDE reviews, which is why I'm kind of happy doing the XFCE and the open box especially. They have different GUI interfaces that they're set up for. But anyway, Linux Mint's been great, stable. I'll leave it at that. As I always say, if it's morning, evening, noon, or night, whatever you're having while you're watching, enjoy. Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much this week for all the birthday wishes. I know I shamelessly plugged myself a couple days ago about, hey, it's my birthday, October 2nd. Woohoo! Yeah. Thanks anyway. I appreciate all the happy birthdays. Only happens once a year, and I'm not getting any younger. But thank you all very much. Appreciate it. I do plan to keep doing the Gentoo and reviews weekly and somewhere around the middle of the week. Next week may be a little difficult for me. I will be on the road away from family up north doing some traveling for work, but I'm hoping that the hotels I'll be at will have internet, and I'll still be able to bring my work as well as my personal laptop for the evenings and work on the Gentoo and review videos, and also put another Linux distribution. Like I said, always say, if you've got a distribution you would like me to look at, no matter how hard, how simple, what GUI, I will look at it if you let me know what you'd like me to install and try to just critique it a little, tell you what I think of it. I know most of the time I don't even talk about the distro as much as I talk about the things in the distro or other distros. It is what it is. I hope you enjoy it. You must be. I've been getting at least a couple views per video, and I appreciate that. Anyway, until next time, thanks a lot. Talk to y'all later. Thanks again for the comments. We'll talk to you later. Bye.